David Armstrong adjusted the settings on his visor as the shuttle descended through the swirling mists of Zarmina, a lush exoplanet located in the Gliese system. The atmosphere cleared, revealing sprawling forests dotted with crystalline structures that shimmered under the twin suns. Beside him, his colleague, Dr. Marco Jennings, tapped eagerly at the shuttle's sensor panel. "Look at those readings, David. The bioactivity here is off the charts," Marco exclaimed, his eyes alight with excitement. David nodded, sharing Marco's enthusiasm as he peered out of the window. "Let's hope the locals are friendly," he joked, but his mind was already racing with the possibilities of what they might discover. The shuttle touched down softly on a bed of violet grass. The doors hissed open, and the two men stepped out, their boots sinking slightly into the soft ground. They were greeted by a panorama of alien beauty, untouched and wild. "All right, let's set up the perimeter scanners. We don't want any surprises," Marco said as he began unloading equipment. As they worked, a soft rustling from a nearby copse of silver-leaved trees drew their attention. David paused, signaling Marco to be quiet. A figure stepped out from the shadows of the trees, its delicate features humanoid but distinctly alien. She had large, expressive eyes and her skin bore a soft luminescence. "Hello," David said slowly, raising his hand in a gesture of peace. The alien girl tilted her head, watching them with an intense curiosity. "Hello," she echoed in a melodic tone, her voice carrying a strange, captivating lilt. "I'm David, and this is Marco," David introduced, pointing between them. "I am Lila," she replied, stepping closer. The fearlessness of her approach spoke of a being who had not learned to fear strangers. Marco, who had been setting up a device, looked up and smiled. "Lila, that's a beautiful name. Welcome to our little expedition." Lila's gaze drifted between the equipment and the humans. "Your tools look different. What brings you here?" she asked, her tone friendly but cautious. "We're scientists from Earth," David explained. "We study planets and cultures, hoping to learn and share knowledge." Lila nodded, her eyes widening with interest. "Knowledge is valued here as well. Would you share yours with me? Perhaps I could show you some of Zarmina in return? That would be excellent." "We'd appreciate a guide," Marco responded enthusiastically. As they spoke, David began to set up a portable translator device, hoping it would make communication smoother. Lila watched curiously, her head cocked to the side. "What is that?" she inquired, pointing at the device. "It's a translator, to help us understand each other better," David explained as he activated it. The device beeped, and a green light indicated it was ready. Lila spoke a few words in her lilting language, and the device emitted a clear, "I am pleased to meet you, David and Marco." The men laughed, relieved by the success of their technology. "It's working perfectly," Marco said. "Now we can talk about anything." Lila clapped her hands lightly, a gesture of delight. "Then let us begin. There is much to see, and I would enjoy learning about your world too." David packed the last of their gear as Marco and Lila started towards the forest. "We're ready when you are," he called out, eager to follow her into the heart of her world. As they walked, the air filled with the sounds of an alien planet, the calls of unseen creatures, and the rustle of bizarre foliage. Everything was new, and David felt a rush of the explorer's thrill, the promise of unknown wonders waiting just ahead, with Lila as their bridge to this new world. David, Marco, and Lila huddled around the portable translator device under the expansive canopy of Zarmina's twin-leaf trees. The air was alive with the sounds of alien fauna, creating a backdrop of natural symphony as they began their experiment in interstellar communication. "Let's start simple," David suggested, looking towards Lila with a notebook in hand. "Tell us about your family, Lila. Do you have siblings?" Lila listened as the translator conveyed David's words, and then replied, "Yes, I have 2 sisters and a brother. We learn from each other as we grow." Marco scribbled notes, intrigued. "It's like that for us too. Families are a core part of human society. What do you do together?" "We explore, we learn, we help our community evolve," Lila responded, her eyes brightening at the discussion of her family. "What about you? What is important in your families?" David shared a warm smile. "We teach, we support, and we celebrate life's moments together. Families can look very different, but those principles are pretty universal for us. As they exchange details about their cultures, Marco set up a holographic projector to show images of Earth, from bustling cities to quiet countrysides. Lila was captivated, her gaze fixed on the pictures of mountains and oceans. Your world has so much water. Zarmina's oceans are smaller, she observed, pointing to a picture of the Pacific Ocean. Yeah, Earth is pretty unique in that aspect, Marco responded. Let's show you more about our scientific endeavors. Maybe you'll find some parallels with your own science. David then presented images of Earth's technological achievements, space stations, deep-sea exploratories, and particle colliders. Lila listened intently, often asking the translator to replay the descriptions so she could grasp the complexities of human technology. Do your people explore space too? David asked, eager to learn if Zarmina's inhabitants reached beyond their own skies. Not yet. We are bound to Zarmina, but we dream of the stars, Lila explained, a hint of longing in her voice. Our science is more about harmony with nature. We advance cautiously, ensuring our planet thrives. That's a perspective we could learn from, Marco noted, impressed by her civilization's philosophy. The conversation shifted to Lila's questions about Earth's governance and social structures. David explained the concept of democracy and various forms of government across different human cultures. And how do you govern here on Zarmina? Marco asked, genuinely curious. We live by consensus and common good. It's less about rules and more about mutual understanding and respect, Lila described, her descriptions painting a picture of a peaceful and cooperative society. Sounds idealistic. Must be challenging to achieve, David remarked, his tone reflective. It requires understanding and patience, Lila agreed, nodding. Much like this exchange we're having. As the suns began to set, casting a golden glow through the thick foliage, the trio packed up their equipment. They had spent hours sharing and learning, the groundwork of friendship solidifying through mutual curiosity and respect. Tomorrow, maybe you can show us some of your technological achievements, Marco suggested as they prepared to return to their camp. Lila smiled. I would like that. You will see how Zarmina blends technology with nature. As they walked back, the alien twilight enveloping them, David felt a profound sense of connection. Despite the vast distances between their worlds and the differences in their cultures, the fundamental desire to understand and connect was universal. David and Marco followed Lila through the verdant underbrush of Zarmina, their path lit by the soft glow of bioluminescent plants. The air was thick with the sweet scent of alien flowers as they ventured deeper into the uncharted territory. Today, I'll show you the heart of Zarmina, Lila announced, her voice filled with pride. It's where our technology and nature are most intertwined. Marco adjusted his camera, eager to document everything. Can't wait to see how you manage that balance. It's something we're still struggling with on Earth. As they approached a clearing, the forest gave way to a breathtaking view. Before them lay a vast complex of structures seamlessly integrated into the natural landscape. Towering structures with translucent walls pulsed with a gentle light, and water flowed through aqueducts that spiraled around them like vines. This is incredible, David murmured, taking in the sight of harmonious architecture. Lila led them to one of the buildings, where walls made of a crystal-like material enhanced the natural light, creating a warm, inviting glow inside. This is one of our learning centers. Here, we study the ecology of Zarmina and develop technologies to sustain it. Inside, they were greeted by a group of Lila's peers, all varying in appearance but similarly luminescent. These are my colleagues, Lila introduced. They're eager to learn about your technology too. David and Marco exchanged handshakes and pleasantries with the group, using the translator device to aid their communication. Each of the Zarminian scientists shared a bit about their work, showing models of ecological projects that utilized natural energy sources like geothermal and solar power. One of the scientists, a tall figure named Aaron, showed them a holographic display of the planet's energy grid. We use the planet's magnetic field to generate power. It minimizes environmental impact. That's smart, Marco commented, comparing it mentally to Earth's struggle with fossil fuels. We're still working on spreading that kind of tech widely, David, who had a keen interest in alternative energy, asked several technical questions, jotting down notes that might be useful for his own research back home. As the tour continued, they visited a laboratory where geneticists worked on enhancing plant resilience for harsh climates, a critical issue for Earth as well. Lila explained, "We modify plants to better thrive in less fertile areas, ensuring food stability without harming the ecosystem." Genetic modification is a bit contentious back on Earth, David explained. But seeing it used like this, purely for ecological balance, is enlightening. The group then headed outside to a garden where these modified plants were thriving, displaying a variety of colors and forms that were both functional and aesthetically pleasing. Each plant here plays a role in stabilizing the local biome, one of the gardeners, Tyla, explained. And they're all interconnected. As the suns began to set, casting a golden hue over the gardens, the Earth scientists and their Zarminian hosts gathered around a large table for a meal. It was a chance to informally share more about their lives and work. Over dishes made from local produce, Lila asked, "What hopes do you have for your planet?" David thought for a moment before answering. "We hope to learn from others, like you, how to better balance our needs with the health of our planet." Marco nodded in agreement, adding, "And maybe make a few friends along the way." As laughter and conversation filled the air, the barriers between the two species seemed to diminish. They shared not only food but ideas and dreams, finding common ground and mutual respect in their shared commitment to their planets. The day concluded with promises to collaborate, and as David and Marco walked back to their camp under the stars of Zarmina, they felt a renewed sense of purpose. This partnership could be the beginning of significant change for both worlds. The morning on Zarmina was crisp and cool, a pleasant contrast to the intense heat of the previous days. David and Marco, fueled by the promise of new discoveries, met Lila at the edge of what she called the reflective gardens, a place where her people often came for quiet contemplation and study. "Today, I thought we might explore something different," Lila began, her voice echoing slightly in the tranquility of the garden. "Let's talk about the biology of attraction in our species. I believe understanding each other's emotional and physical responses can deepen our intercultural exchange." David was intrigued. "That's a great idea. Human emotions and attractions are influenced by a variety of factors: biological, psychological, and social." Marco set up a digital recorder to capture the conversation, nodding in agreement. "And it's complex, influenced by hormones, social upbringing, and personal preferences." Lila led them to a serene spot by a reflective pool, where the water mirrored the vivid blue Armenian sky. "For us, attraction is primarily sensed through pheromones. We can sense compatibility and emotional states through scent," she explained, her eyes curious about their reaction. "That's similar to some Earth animals," David noted, "but humans rely more on visual and verbal cues, alongside less obvious chemical signals." "Interesting," Lila mused. "Do humans have rituals or specific behaviors when trying to attract a mate?" Marco laughed lightly. "Oh, absolutely. From simple things like smiling and talking, to more elaborate gestures like gifts or dates to special places. As a matter of fact," David added, "dancing, singing, or even cooking a meal can be part of human courtship. It's about showing skill, care, or commitment." Lila seemed fascinated. "Here, we have a dance of the leaves. It's a traditional display during our bonding season. Participants weave through the forest, mimicking the fall of leaves. It's both a visual and olfactory display." "I'd love to see that," Marco said, genuinely interested. "It must be beautiful." "It is," Lila confirmed with a nod. "What about touch? Is that important to humans?" "Very much so," David responded. "Touch can convey comfort, love, or attraction. From holding hands to a gentle pat on the back, it's a powerful form of nonverbal communication." They continued discussing different expressions of affection in their cultures, each finding joy in the discovery of similarities and differences. The conversation then shifted towards their personal experiences with attraction and relationships, becoming more reflective. Lila shared a story of her first attraction, a tale filled with humor and a hint of nostalgia. "It was during a gathering similar to your idea of a science fair. I was drawn to another's creativity and intellect." David and Marco shared their stories too, touching on the highs and lows of past relationships. Marco spoke of a deep connection formed during a research expedition, while David recounted a more light-hearted series of short romances during his university years. As the sun climbed higher, signaling midday, they concluded their session with a plan to observe some of Zarmina's bonding rituals in the coming days. "Today has been enlightening," Marco said as they packed up their equipment. "Understanding how we experience attraction and express affection gives us a deeper appreciation for our differences and our similarities." David agreed, feeling a closer bond forming not just with Lila but with her entire world. "It's all part of the great tapestry of life, isn't it? Whether on Earth or Zarmina, the heart has its reasons, which reason knows nothing of." Lila smiled, pleased with their shared insights. "Let's continue exploring. Each day brings us closer, not just as scientists, but as friends." As they left the gardens, the conversations lingered in their minds, a reminder of the universal quest for connection, no matter the world one called home. The next day was marked by a gentle Zarminian breeze that whispered through the branches of the alien forest, carrying the sweet scent of distant blooms. David, Marco, and Lila convened in a central plaza that was buzzing with the daily activities of Lila's community. Today, they had decided to delve deeper into a cultural exchange, sharing art, music, and literature from their respective worlds. "We've brought some classic and contemporary Earth literature for you," David said, presenting Lila with a small digital library. "From Shakespeare to modern science fiction, it's all there." Lila accepted the device with a mixture of awe and curiosity. "And I have compiled Zarminian visual and musical arts for you. Our art often integrates natural sounds and bioluminescence." As they settled into a circular seating area, Marco set up a portable screen and speakers. He started with a piece of classical music, explaining its origin and significance. "This is Beethoven's Symphony No. 5, a powerful piece that many find uplifting." Lila listened intently, her eyes closed, allowing the vibrations to wash over her. When the music ended, she opened her eyes, visibly moved. "There's a strength in it, yet a melancholy that lingers. Our music often focuses on balance and harmony. Let me show you." She played a composition that seemed to mimic the natural sounds around them, with layers of tones and rhythms that subtly shifted. The music felt alive, almost as if the environment itself was part of the performance. "It's beautiful," Marco remarked. "It feels like the music is breathing with the forest." David then shared a selection of poetry and short stories on the screen, explaining the context of each piece. Here's a poem by Emily Dickinson. Her work is often introspective, delving into the nature of existence and emotion. As Lila read, her expression reflected a deep concentration. Her words paint vivid pictures, stir emotions. We too use poetry to express our deeper feelings, often in conjunction with visual art. She guided them to a nearby gallery where Zarminian poetry was displayed alongside intricate paintings that used the planet's natural luminescence. The text was accompanied by translations, which Lila had prepared beforehand. The artwork depicted scenes of Zarminian life, rich in color and emotion, illustrating the poem's themes. "I see parallels in our use of metaphor and symbolism," David noted, examining a painting that seemed to depict an allegory of growth and decay. "Yes, art helps us process our world and our emotions," Lila agreed. "What about storytelling in your culture? How do you preserve history and lore?" Marco introduced historical narratives and documentaries, explaining their role in education and entertainment on Earth. "We use both factual and fictional storytelling to explore our past and potential futures." Intrigued, Lila shared a virtual reality experience that recreated historical Zarminian events. "We use immersive experiences to teach our young about our history. It's important for them to feel and understand the context, not just learn facts." As the afternoon waned, they discussed the impact of cultural exchange on societal understanding and development. They agreed that sharing their cultures had not only broadened their horizons, but deepened their appreciation for each other's worlds. "We're more alike than we are different," Marco summed up as they packed away their equipment. "Our expressions vary, but the core emotions, the joy, sorrow, fear, and hope, are universal." David nodded, feeling a profound connection to Zarmina and its people. Let's keep this exchange going. I think there's a lot we can learn from each other. Lila smiled warmly. I would like that very much. Today has been enlightening for all of us. As they parted ways for the evening, the seeds of a lasting friendship, fostered by the mutual sharing of their cultures, had been firmly planted. As the twin suns of Zarmina dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows through the alien foliage, David, Marco, and Lila gathered around a softly glowing fire pit in a communal area of the village. The cool night air was filled with the gentle chirps of nocturnal creatures, setting a serene backdrop for their evening discussion. Today's exchange got me thinking, Lila began, her eyes reflecting the flickering light. Our discussions about art and literature were so deeply tied to emotions. It's fascinating how emotions drive so much of what we do. David nodded, poking gently at the fire with a stick. It's true. Emotions can be powerful motivators, but also complex and difficult to manage. Humans often struggle with understanding their own feelings, Marco added, and dealing with emotions can be even more complicated when different cultures come into play. What one culture considers appropriate emotional expression, another might find excessive or understated. Lila leaned forward, intrigued. Can you give an example from Earth? Well, David started. In some human cultures, openly expressing joy or sorrow is encouraged and seen as healthy. In others, stoicism is valued, and emotional restraint is considered a virtue. That's similar here on Zarmina, Lila responded. Though generally, we are taught to embrace and understand our emotions, not suppress them. It helps us maintain harmony within the community. The conversation shifted as Marco asked Lila a more personal question. Have you ever found it difficult to express your emotions? Lila thought for a moment, then nodded. Yes, especially when those emotions are conflicted. It can be challenging to reconcile feelings of joy and sadness when they occur at the same time. David shared a smile of understanding. Humans experience that too. We call it bittersweet, when a moment is both happy and sad. The complexity of emotions is what makes personal relationships so intricate, Marco said, turning the stick in his hands. It's not just about understanding others, but also understanding ourselves. As the night deepened, they began to share personal stories that highlighted their emotional journeys. David spoke of his time in university, a period filled with both excitement and anxiety as he navigated new relationships and responsibilities. Marco recounted a particularly challenging field study, which, despite its hardships, led to some of the most rewarding moments of his career. It was tough, but the emotional growth I experienced was invaluable. Lila listened intently, then shared her own experience of when she first took on a leadership role within her community. I felt overwhelmed but also proud. It was a tumultuous time, learning to balance my own expectations with those of my peers. As they each reflected on their stories, it became clear that despite the vast differences between their worlds, the emotional landscapes they navigated were remarkably similar. David looked from Marco to Lila, feeling a sense of camaraderie building between them. It seems that no matter where we come from, the heart has its own language. Yes, Lila agreed softly. Understanding that language can bring us closer, despite our different backgrounds or species. The fire crackled softly as they sat in thoughtful silence, each considering the new depths of understanding they had reached. The night grew late, and eventually, they decided it was time to part ways. Let's continue this tomorrow, Marco suggested as they stood up. I think there's a lot more we can explore about our emotions and how they shape our lives. Agreed, said David. It's been enlightening. Lila smiled warmly. Thank you both for sharing so openly. I look forward to our next conversation. As they walked back to their respective quarters, the bonds of friendship that had begun to form were now strengthened by their shared emotional disclosures, setting a foundation for deeper connection and understanding. The following morning brought a subtle tension that hung in the air, noticeable as David and Marco approached the site where they had agreed to meet Lila. Today's agenda was lighter, a deliberate choice to allow space for the more personal conversations that had begun to emerge among them. As they arrived, they found Lila waiting for them, her expression thoughtful, almost pensive. "Good morning," she greeted, though her usual brightness was somewhat dimmed. "Morning, Lila," David replied, sensing her mood. "Is everything okay?" Lila hesitated before speaking. "I have been thinking about our discussions, about emotions and personal connections. It made me realize how complex these feelings can be when they involve people from different worlds." Marco nodded, setting down his equipment. "It's definitely complex. Relationships are complicated enough without adding interstellar distances into the mix." "That's just it," Lila continued. "I find myself wondering about the future. What happens when you eventually leave Zarmina?" David felt a stir of emotion at the mention of departure. The connection they had formed with Lila and her world had grown stronger than he had anticipated. "We've been thinking about that too," he admitted. "It's not easy to think about saying goodbye. Could there be another way?" Marco suggested, looking between his friends. "What if there was a way to extend our project here? Or perhaps initiate a more permanent exchange of knowledge and culture?" Lila looked hopeful at Marco's suggestion. "I would support that. It would be wonderful to continue what we've started. Our leaders might be open to such an idea." The trio sat down on a nearby log, pulling out their devices to draft a proposal. David outlined the scientific benefits while Marco added cultural and educational exchanges to the document. As they worked, Lila contributed ideas on how Zarminians could benefit from human technology, especially in terms of educational tools and environmental management systems. "Your approaches could complement our practices, and we have much to teach as well." The conversation turned deeply collaborative, each contributing from their expertise, weaving together a vision for a future where humans and Zarminians could continue to learn from each other. After several hours, the document was ready. "We should present this to our respective authorities," David said, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. "I'll arrange a meeting with my leaders as soon as possible," Lila assured, her tone determined. "They need to see the potential in this." Marco looked at both of his friends. "Whatever happens, I want you to know how much this project, this place, and you, Lila, have meant to me." Lila smiled, reaching out to squeeze Marco's and David's hands. "And you to me. No matter the decision, this has been a transformative experience." David nodded, feeling a profound connection and a sense of purpose that went beyond his initial scientific curiosity. "Let's hope for the best." They stood together, watching Zarmina's suns begin their descent, casting long shadows and bathing the landscape in a golden glow. The moment was poignant, filled with the potential of endings and new beginnings. As they parted ways for the evening, David felt a mixture of hope and uncertainty. Tomorrow would be significant, one way or another. The day of the presentation had arrived. David and Marco walked together to the Zarminian Council Hall, a structure elegantly woven into the surrounding nature, its walls pulsating softly with bioluminescent light. The weight of the moment was palpable between them, each step taking them closer to a potential new chapter in human and Zarminian relations. "I can't believe we're already here," Marco murmured, adjusting the collar of his uniform. "Feels like we just landed." David nodded, his stomach tight with nerves. "It's been an incredible journey. No matter what happens today, we've made something great." Lila met them at the entrance, her expression composed but her eyes betraying her nervousness. "They're ready for us. Our leaders are very interested to hear what we have to propose." Together, they entered the hall, where a semicircle of Zarminian leaders sat awaiting them. The room was serene, with views of the verdant landscape framed perfectly by the open walls of the hall. David started the presentation, laying out the scientific achievements and discoveries made during their stay. "Our collaboration has already shown promising results," he explained, showcasing data and images from their research. Marco took over to discuss the cultural exchange, emphasizing the mutual benefits of continued learning and sharing between their peoples. "We've only scratched the surface of what we can learn from each other. Our proposal is to establish a permanent cultural and educational exchange." Lila presented next, her voice steady and persuasive. "This partnership could serve as a model for interstellar cooperation. We have much to gain from each other, not just in knowledge but in the growth of our societies." The leaders listened intently, occasionally whispering among themselves. After the presentation, a senior leader, an elder with a gentle demeanor, addressed them. "Your proposal is visionary," she began. We are moved by your dedication and the bonds you have formed with each other and our world. We believe this is a path worth exploring." Relief washed over David, Marco, and Lila as the council discussed and then unanimously agreed to proceed with the initiative. As they exited the council hall, Lila turned to David and Marco, a broad smile spreading across her face. "You did it. We did it." David laughed, a joyful sound that echoed lightly in the open air. "We couldn't have done it without you, Lila. This is your victory too." Marco clapped them both on the back. Imagine the future generations learning from this partnership. What a story they'll have to tell. The suns of Zarmina were setting as they left the hall, casting the sky in brilliant hues of orange and purple. They decided to walk back to their compound, taking in the beautiful sights one more time together. As they walked, they discussed plans for the future. David decided to extend his stay on Zarmina to help set up the initial phase of the exchange program. "I can't think of a better place to be right now," he admitted. "And I'll be going back to Earth to coordinate from that end," Marco added. "But I'll be back soon. Can't miss out on all the fun here." Lila took their hands in hers, gratitude and affection in her eyes. "Thank you both for believing in this, for believing in my world." As they reached their compound, the stars beginning to twinkle in the sky, David felt a profound sense of contentment and excitement for the future. They had started something special here, something that would grow beyond their wildest imaginations. "We started as strangers, but now we're leaving as family," Marco said, looking between David and Lila. "Yes," Lila agreed, squeezing their hands. "And this is just the beginning." They stood together for a moment longer, watching the night take hold, the stars shining brightly above them, a testament to the boundless possibilities of friendship, cooperation, and understanding across the stars.